In this tutorial, we're going to continue to look at the styles of communication. This tutorial assumes that you come from a culture that has a more direct communication style. Because it can be difficult for people from a direct culture to understand and practice indirectness, this tutorial is designed to help you to begin that process. However, if you come from a culture that has an indirect communication style, you may have already encountered a direct culture and have learned, at least to some degree, how to communicate with people who leave little unspoken. Whatever cultural background you have, if you are intending to live and work in a cross-cultural situation, you need to know your own communication style and to be willing to practice another style of communication in order to speak clearly to people in your new community. This tutorial also includes exercises for you to do in your local community, observing and noting different kinds of nonverbal communication. These exercises are helpful for you to begin to get a feel for taking part in and observing real-life situations in a deeper, more objective way. For people who are direct communicators, it can be quite a challenge to say things indirectly. It takes careful thought and patience. We will look at 7 direct statements with some suggestions under each one as to how they could be said more indirectly. Read each statement and try to rephrase the statement in several different ways to make it more indirect. There are some suggestions below each one. While these statements could be appropriate in some situations, imagine that the context here is a formal meeting where allowing people to save face is important. Number 1, I don't think that's such a good idea. Here's how you could say that more indirectly. Do you think that's a good idea? Are there any other ideas? I like most parts of that idea. Number 2, that's not the point. To say that more indirectly, it might be good to say, that's an interesting point, or that's another good point. Thank you. We seem to be making progress toward the point. Another example here, number 3, I think we should. More indirectly, you could say, I have one possible suggestion, or what do you think of this idea? Or I wonder if this might be something to try. Number 4, what do you think, Bob? A way to say that more indirectly would be, does anyone else have any suggestions? Have we heard all the opinions? Number 5, those figures are not accurate. It would be better to say, I have some other figures here, or those figures may be slightly old, or I was just given some updated figures. For number 6, you're doing that wrong. To say that more indirectly, you might want to say, I would do that like this. Have you tried doing that this way? Or, I've done this before, can I help you? Number 7, I don't agree. Saying that more indirectly might come out as, I have another idea. Or, what do you think of this idea? May I make a suggestion? Or, we might see this slightly differently. Now we'll look at decoding indirectness. This exercise is the opposite of the one we just did. In this activity, the given statements are indirect. We have to explain in a direct language what the speaker probably means. Suggestions are given below each statement. As we read them, try to think about how you would rephrase the statement. Number 1, that is a very interesting viewpoint. They might be meaning, I don't agree. We need to talk more about this. You're wrong. Number 2, this proposal deserves further consideration. They may be meaning, we don't like it. It needs work. Propose something else. Number 3, I know very little about this, but... They may be meaning, I'm something of an expert on this, but I'm too polite to say so. What I think we should do is, number 4, we understand your proposal very well. The possible meaning, do you have another proposal? We don't like it. Number 5, we will try our best. The meaning could be, don't expect much to happen, or your project is not our top priority. Number 6, I heard another story about that project. The meaning might be, I don't agree with what you said about that project. I think you might be exaggerating or trying to spin the truth. Number 7, can we move on to the next topic? They might be meaning, we don't want to talk about this now. We need to consult with people not in the room before we can decide. Our discussion is not going well on this topic. Communication falls into 2 classic categories, verbal and nonverbal. Nonverbal communication can also be divided into a number of specific subcategories. As you work on this tutorial, you're going to do some practical exercises that will focus on several types of nonverbal communication. Just like words, gestures, eye contact, and other nonverbal cues can have different meanings in different cultures, and they can actually communicate a great deal. It's important to understand them if your goal is to communicate naturally and clearly in another culture. A great place to start is to observe what an important role nonverbal communication has in your own culture, and to take note of all the different forms it takes. The following exercises will help you to do that. In order to observe nonverbal communication, you will need to hang out in places in your community where you can observe people interacting with one another, like at a church, a shopping center, a restaurant, or just around the local streets. Take a notebook or record it. Your notes from the following exercises will be your assignment to submit for this tutorial. Gestures. In a number of different settings, watch what people do with their arms, hands, fingers, and whole body. Take notes and try to describe the gestures that you see as scientifically as possible. A man held out his hand, or palm down, and wiggled his fingers. And indicate what you think is the meaning of each gesture. To call a waiter to his table, maybe as an example. Take notes on at least 4 gestures that you observe for each of the following: the arms, the hands, fingers, or the whole body. Eye contact. Observe the degree and nature of eye contact in as many of the following situations as possible, and note down what you find for each case. Between 2 men of the same age, between 2 women of the same age, between an older and a younger man or a woman, between a man and a woman, between a husband and a wife in public, between a boss and employee, between a teacher and a student, between a parent and a child, and between people passing on the street. Conversational style. Observe the following nonverbal aspects of typical conversations and take note of what you find. How much gesturing goes on in general? How does the transition from one speaker to the next take place? How long does one person speak before allowing the other to speak? How do people indicate they want to end the conversation? How do people show disagreement? How do people show displeasure with what they hear? How do people show pleasure at what they are hearing? And what is the pattern of eye contact between the speaker and the listener? Facial expressions. Observe what people do with their head, their eyes, eyebrows, mouth, nose, chin, etc. Record any observations as accurately as you can, indicating what the different facial expressions mean for the following: the head and the forehead, eyes and eyebrows, the nose, the chin and jaw, any part of the face or head in combination with the hands and fingers. Personal space. Observe how close various kinds of people stand or sit to each other in various settings. In normal conversation, at work or on the street, in line at the post office, the bank, or the cinema, in an elevator, between two men, or two women, or two children, an older and a younger person, parent and child, a man and a woman, or a husband and a wife. Touching. Observe how much and in which parts of the body the following people touch each other: two men, two women, husband and wife, unrelated man and woman, parent and child, older and younger person.